saying that they like my style. Wanna know how I do it? I smile. While you were out there saying hey, hi, hello, I was getting dressed up in shades of yellow.
Hello, welcome to the Lovely Job podcast. I'm Leah Spicer-Pownall. I'm the marketing manager of Miss Bush, and this is...
I'm Emma Marshall. I'm the MD of Miss Bush.
And how are you feeling today, Emma?
Shocking. Literally, like, it's not big or clever to have a hangover, and I don't ever really get them. So this is because I had beer and wine, and I think this is, mixing drinks is never a really good idea, or going out at sort of lunchtime-ish and not really finishing any drinks until late in the evening. Well, in my defence, let me tell you why I've had beer and wine, because we're trying to think about Marshy's 60th birthday, which is coming up. And one part of my friendship group are the sort of people that organise their kind of big birthdays years in advance. I mean, you're on notice 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in advance. And they've got the date, save the dates and everything. And Marshy's birthday is in 2 months' time, and we haven't done anything. We saw this really good covers band at New Year's Eve called the Hill Brothers, and they were a 5-piece band, and they were excellent. And I basically just danced all night to covers, which is like one of my favourite things in the world. I've even recommended them to a bride as well.
Oh, wow.
And then I guess 2 of them must actually be brothers, because they look pretty similar. So the Hill Brothers as a 2-piece were playing in quite not an amazing pub, I have to say, yesterday lunchtime. And it's the kind of pub where you can't really drink the wine because it is in Fandel.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I'll have a couple of pints of neck oil. So, to that extent, it's like neck oil just makes you want to wee the whole time. So it's kind of...
I've never heard that before, neck oil.
Neck oil, yeah.
I've never had that before.
It's a brand of beer.
It's a brand. Oh, okay. I thought it was just some kind of saying.
I think it was a saying, but it's actually a brand of beer. So yeah. So we were in this slightly, I don't want to call the pub dodgy because it's completely fine, but it's just not one that you would go to for fine wines. So we kind of were there and watched the band as a 2-piece. They were really good. And then lo and behold, our local MP, Stephen Morgan, showed up and was hosting an MP's clinic there. So I kind of only in Portsmouth/Southsea could you actually see a covers band and your local MP while having a pint of neck oil all at the same time. It's like very much that whole very accessible democracy in action. I thought that was pretty good, actually. So anyway, because I'd suffered to only not have any wine, I then decided that we would go to Crushed and Cured, which is the really good wine bar, have a couple of glasses of wine there, and then buy a nice bottle of wine to take home. But in the interim, Marshy wanted to watch the second half of the Arsenal football match. And so I had another pint of beer and then some wine when I got home. So it's been a bit of a beer wine situation, which is why my head looks like this.
Isn't there a saying of that, like beer before wine makes you feel fine or something? Wine before beer makes you feel queer. Yeah.
I don't know.
What happens if you go wine, beer?
Yeah. Fine, queer. That's what happens. And I've woken up feeling quite queer this morning. Yeah, absolutely. So, bit of a headache. I literally couldn't find any paracetamols in the whole house. I was like,
oh no.
I had to send Marshy out for some kind of
good old Marshy.
So, yeah, I woke up and I kind of tried to feel better by watching the Grammys kind of red carpet stuff.
We can't skip talking about the Grammys, can we?
No, God. Well, can I just say, nobody looks like a rock star. Everyone looks like a manufactured, but very beautifully manufactured product. Everything's so glossy and flawless that I kind of where's the punks? Where's the people that actually are aggressive and alternative and weird and the weirdo losers that are the most magnificent musicians. Do you know what I mean? It was so glossy. I know the Grammys is about rewarding sales and commercial music, and it isn't really, but I was a bit come on. It wasn't a single kind of
Well, no, I really liked Chapel Rowan. She did a speech. Did you see any of her speech?
I've seen her, like, standing up and being an ally for trans people. I saw that bit. It was the sort of more of a,
Yeah.
I had no, because you know what I'm like, so shallow. I'm like all over the clothes, so I haven't actually watched much
Well,
footage.
she did a speech. She said that if she ever won a Grammy, she would demand that labels start to support their artists better, because during COVID she got dropped by her label and she basically couldn't support herself. So she did a speech about that, which I thought was quite cool.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia would have plenty to say about
Yeah, she
labels
would.
and things. So,
and of course,
but
we loved her dress because it was yellow, Miss Bush yellow, vintage. What was it? Jean Paul Gaultier? Or
Yeah, it was Gaultier, wasn't it? She had a couple of outfits on, though, I saw. So, yeah, there's a few,
Love that.
few bits.
And it was actually, the Degas ballerinas painting. It was like a print of that, which I really liked.
Yeah, I always love like a tulle skirt and a black tight. So, it's a good, and sort of that ballet dance. Actually, I kind of feel sad that tulle skirts aren't in like the collections at the moment, because I do love a tulle skirt. Remember, there was that one from like Hazy's Perret that we loved that was utterly raggedy looking, so beautiful.
Yes.
But I don't think people get it because they just, oh God, they just say things like, "Oh, it's a meringue." And it's like, oh, go away. You can't have a dress there. If you actually use the word meringue in my shop, I'm going to not let you have a dress at all of any description, meringue or not. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, get a wider vocabulary to describe wedding dresses and do not use the word
That's just
meringue.
what you've been fed by the media, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's a long time. That came out in like, Christian Scott Thomas saying it in like 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And it's like, it was only mildly funny then. But honestly, I swear to God, every mother thinks she's invented the word. What's meringue? Will it crease? Like, no meringues, and like, well, it depends what you do in it. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, that's aside. That isn't really our so yeah, that's why I feel a bit sketchy this morning. But I did loved seeing that. Really, really worried about Kanye's wife though. Just Bianca Sensori. I mean, it just looks so wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just so wrong. And also, some of the media outlets have put little black lines over her boobs, her nipples, and her her.
What word are you going to use for this?
Well, I don't know. I was just going to say over her Miss Bush, but she hasn't got one, so there's not much of a Miss Bush there at all to be had. So, so she hasn't. Yeah. So, and then I saw in Spanish Vogue, or one of the more European Vogues, it was just like literally no editing. It was just like here's the nipples.
Yeah, I saw a full nude one as well. But they put like a censored one on the front, and then you swiped, and there was a nude one. I was like, well, you've done that on purpose, just so that you can share it.
I just think it just looks so weird.
Yeah.
And also it's quite interesting because we're obviously doing like a bridesmaids conversation today, but that is almost like the worst kind of bridesmaids anxiety dream, isn't it?
You just turn up and you're naked.
Yeah. So literally, yeah, I just don't know literally why Kanye feels the need to do that, or she feels the need to do that. I mean, she makes Julia Fox look well dressed, and she was wearing marigolds.
True. I actually love Julia Fox. She's great. Like, if you follow her on like TikTok and things like that, she's really cool.
Yeah, I still not really on TikTok. I feel like I don't need any more reasons to have my time sucked away on my phone.
No, true. Okay, and so you've shared on stories this morning. You've obviously shared Bianca's story, and you've put a skirt on her. And then the next one, you shared a picture of Billie Eilish, Sabrina Carpenter, and Chapel Rowan. Which are you going to talk about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, because we've had so many questions about bridesmaids. And when you brought it up the other day, I said I can talk for a good hour just on the subject of bridesmaids. But what I thought was interesting about that picture of the three of them together, it just really demonstrates the broad spectrum of femininity and how women dress. I mean, and even including Bianca Sensori and that, but how actual women dress when they put actual clothes on. So you've got Sabrina Carpenter rocking that kind of, classic old Hollywood look that she's been doing all year, basically, all
Blonde
of last
bombshell.
year. Yeah, absolutely. You've got Chapel Rowan, who's she said in one of the speeches on the red carpet, she wouldn't exist without trans women. So she's got that kind of playing with gender kind of vibe. It's like a female drag queen kind of thing, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, we're big drag fans, so it's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
it's a sort of conversation we're sort of used to having. And then you've got Billie Eilish looking feminine but queer, and also not particularly, I would say that was a fairly gender neutral outfit that she had on. So I kind of was looking at that because I just think that we have these really positive representations of contemporary femininity, which also are reflected in people's wedding dress choices as well. Do you know what I mean? We've shared on this week, we've shared a religious wedding with someone, wearing a jumpsuit. You
Mm-hmm.
can wear whatever you like. Do you know what I mean? We've shared sort of like same-sex weddings recently, very, very different designs and styles two brides. And I feel like that kind of like broad positive acceptance of everybody's, own personal style and a personal expression of their femininity is great. And you get to bridesmaids,
Mm-hmm.
gone.
Yep.
Literally gone. Literally, just we've got a very mono viewpoint on what a bridesmaid should look like, and I think inherently that is outrageously wrong, dated, and a bit rubbish. Really, do you know what I mean? I know you can have people who go, "Oh, we'll have the same colour, different styles." It's like that's not really that representative of your. It's not really honouring your friends necessarily, unless they've all got identical personalities, which seems unlikely.
Mm.
So yeah, that was why I put that picture up there.
Okay.
To sort of like, in my mind, um I think the way to think about bridesmaids is to kind of think broadly.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I hadn't really considered that actually. About as a bride, you can express yourself, and it's about your personality. And then you get to bridesmaid, and it's like, oh, you all have to be like clones, like you all have to look the same. And like, yeah, it's not really fair, is it?
no, not really.
No.
No. So yeah, no. So I think an hour. I think you can stop me at an hour, but I don't
Okay.
think we. Yeah, you'll be like, stop talking about bridesmaids now, unless I have something really interesting. I'm like, no, put it in.
Okay.
So I think it'll be good to get the context of the questions so people know what other brides are asking. So I think that
Okay.
is pretty good.
So one of them is choosing bridesmaid dresses that complement your dress, so the bride's dress, and also your favourite bridesmaid brands and how to find them.
Okay, that's like, well, the second part of that is going to be controversial. Just
Ooh.
saying. Just to,
I love it when I hear that you're going to be controversial.
well, okay, so basically, let's like wind back onto some of this. So, a dress that complements the bride's dress. I'm feeling that this might be one of our actual brides, actually. I might need to look up what she's wearing. But basically, what I find quite tricky is, for example, if somebody was to buy a Suzanne Neville dress from us, what bridesmaid's dress would complement that? Well, a Suzanne Neville dress in a colour. That's what would go well with it. Do you know, because they're so artfully manufactured and engineered that it's quite hard to put somebody in a dress next to it and it look any good. And it's quite interesting. When I was saying on another podcast about I got a bride in whose wife to be was also hopefully is going to be a client, and the first bride who's bought a dress from us said, "Oh, I know she likes Suzanne Neville," and I'm always basically like, yeah, well, if that is the case, then we've got to make sure that whatever you put next to a Suzanne Neville looks really good. It doesn't have to be the same, but it needs to fit and be amazing, because that's the level of quality you expect. So I think the basic problem with bridesmaids dresses is they are cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And they are very often only available in a fairly limited range of sizes. And even to a mum the other day, I said, "Oh, but when you get these fitted," she goes, "I don't think they're going to need fitting, do you?" I was like, it slightly bothered me that, say, for example, if you had 5 different women in a dress, that if the hemlines didn't match, do you know what I mean? Like if one was like absolute floor length and the other you could see someone's ankles, I'd be like, that would really mess with my kind of sense of chi. So basically, I think like really what the first problem is is complementing the bride's dress is pretty hard. So I'm going to rewind this right the way back, and I would say to brides, my first thing would be like, as soon as you're engaged, don't excitedly in a mad like fit of like just adoring your friends ask them to be bridesmaids at all, without actually considering the investment that takes in terms of actually having them looking really nice, because I think it's really hard to get dresses which fit that sort of criteria of standing next to a very formal wedding dress and actually looking nice. I mean, do you remember years ago, like years and years and years ago, we had a brand of multi-way bridesmaids dresses called Two Birds,
Oh yeah.
and they were supposed to flatter everyone. I mean, I put one on myself. They're not flattering. And I've really truly yet to see a multi-way bridesmaid's dress that actually is flattering. It's basically a nasty piece of nylon with two stringy bits on it that you're supposed to wind around yourself as an artful ways. And it's like, on some girls, they do look really lovely. But imagine the sort of person that does look really lovely in that is the sort of person that would look okay in a bin bag. So that is kind of the problem. It wasn't flattering on me. It was really difficult to wear a bra with it. And it was just it didn't offer any support or body shaping or tailoring or anything like that. So I kind of think
Can I just say, we don't use the word flattering often, but like when talking about this, like, it's just
because effectively what your bride is Kanye, and do you know what I mean? And you are imposing generally some kind of aesthetic on someone, and I think to honour someone else, flattering is not necessarily the word for the body shape, but I think you've got to flatter their personality. I think you've got to honour them as women. Do you know what I mean? So I think like. Otherwise, you're pretty much putting your best friend in a fur coat and then asking her to take it off and be naked. Do you know what I mean? I think it is really important to say, like, before you even ask any, think about the fact that you have to, these women are standing there as support for you, but they're also like, and you're also asking them to be part of a very sort of like select group of people, very privileged people. I guess it's supposed to be some kind of thank you for being such a good friend, or I love you, my sister, or my cousin, or like I really want to make my new partner's sister feel amazing. And also we have had people have men in their bridesmaids party as well. We've shared that on the on our blog as well. So we've had people will pick their best male friends as well to be in that group. So I think it's I think it's quite a sort of it's quite a challenge. So I feel like really to start with, it's such a complex thing, because when people, I think, quite quickly might ask 6 people to be their bridesmaid without really truly thinking about the financial implication of what that looks like. So I think that my first thing, like I would say, is like, don't have any. And that is wildly controversial, but it's like, you can't sack them now if you've asked them, but before you ask them, think, do you need this? Do you actually need these people that you love dearly to be in a dress, to be there for you on the day? Could you break all of those rules completely and ask them to be with you when you're getting ready, to be your supporter, but do they actually need to be called a bridesmaid? And let's think the bridesmaid comes from a maid meant virgin as well. A maiden, and your maiden head is you're supposed to be your virginity. So, I mean, we are also now looking at, as the broad age group of brides has changed, it's not realistic to think anyone's a virgin. But it's also, I think everybody has much more similar bodies in their, like, pre-losing their virginity. So if you had a bunch of kind of like 15, 16-year-old girls, they're going to look more similar than a group of adult women. So I could see that maybe that original thread of dressing virgin handmaidens to stand next to you had more more able to like make those match. Do you know what I mean? It's like
but do you think so there's probably like I'm not a part of a big girl group. I know you're not either, but in like big girl groups, there's probably a trend of, I had you, and so now you've got to have me, and they're all each other's bridesmaids again and again, aren't they? So like, how would you get around then saying to them, I was your bridesmaid, but I don't want you to be mine? Like, it's probably quite difficult.
I just would say I'm not having any bridesmaids, because you just have no bridesmaids. I think it becomes politically difficult if you pick somebody and not another. Do you know?
Mm.
And I know that can be. I mean, and I have seen sensitivities and prickliness going on. I mean, we've done bridesmaids dresses on a couple of occasions at Miss Bush, and I would say that on the last occasion, which was in the old shop, maybe a little bit crossing over into the new shop, so probably not for 11 years. But even then, in big groups of bridesmaids, not all of them made it to the wedding. One would always fall out with everyone.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it is quite tricky. But then I also find the ideas of Hindus quite horrifying as well. So I mean, literally, like, not that I wouldn't enjoy going on one. I could certainly, certainly dance and stay up all night and have, do you know what I mean? But the politics around that is quite hard.
Mm.
And I hear that going on constantly. And I would rather be the sort of like nerdy weirdo that had to be in a bedroom by themselves than somebody that was like a main kind of organizer, like in the film Bridesmaids. Do you know what I mean? Where it is competitive friending. I don't know. I don't think I would really, really enjoy that. So
No, I feel like as well, if you say to somebody, I'm not having any bridesmaids, and they get mad about it, then maybe they're not a very good friend.
Possibly they hold that kind. I mean, it may be, but maybe they find it more important. Do you know what I mean? Than I would. So it's not like maybe that is, maybe it's something that they truly believe in, and it's a kind of like like something they've always dreamed of being, and helping that person on their wedding day and things like that. But it's just, as I say, I don't really. There's lots of things that I am not like. I'm trying to think of a similar thing. Like, I'm not very sentimental about quite a lot of things, but some people are, and I find it quite hard to access that sentimentality. So,
It's difficult.
and it is quite tricky. So if somebody's, from their like absolute innate personality, it's quite sentimental and wants to honour their friends in that way, and then they don't get the reverse treatment, then I can see how that would be quite upsetting. And maybe, it would seem like they weren't very good friends. But again, I think with all things bridal, I think it's possible to rewrite the rules, and I think it's also possible to set boundaries. It's like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm not doing. It's not that I'm not having a hen do, but I'm not having brides. Quite a few people say to me, I'm not having any adult brides, but I'm going to have a few little kids, flower girls. That is a thing. And I'm like, yes, sensible. Because basically, little girls look adorable in every kind of cute dress. They actively usually want to wear one, and they're not very much money.
Yeah. Oh, we had one a few years ago, and the flower girls all wore fairy wings, and they all had little matching Converse with their little tulle skirts, so they were so adorable. That's good.
I feel I've also seen one where, like, all the bridesmaids, and I can't remember if it's one of our brides or whether it was like something like a celeb, but all of the kids had little ears or tails. So they were slightly like Peter Rabbity, like kind of things, which I think was adorable. Totally adorable. And I always love anything that for kids that has got ears on. So like, I feel like there was a baby in the shop this week that had, I can't remember whether it was like a cardi with ears, but I'm like, yes. I don't know what the thing is about putting ears on things, but it's like, yes, have ears on. So I think that little bridesmaids and page boys, to a point, up to the age of about 6 or 7, I guess, are quite easy to do. And then you get to that difficult age of dressing children anyway, that sort of like elder, sort of like not quite preteens, but I suppose it is preteen, sort of 8 to 12, I think is a really hard age to impose a dress code on children, because they're at that really awkward age where they know they're changing, and I think they just feel awkward about everything.
So Felix is being a ring bearer next year, so he'll be 11.
Yeah. Well, they could probably go in a suit then at 11, couldn't he?
I think so.
It's not going to be, nobody's going to make him wear a kilt or knickerbockers or anything. So, although actually, to be fair,
that would be adorable.
I could see him enjoying that as well. So, so basically, my first kind of point on this is like, do you really need to have bridesmaids at all? Do you need to have adult bridesmaids? Because do you really? If you were very honoured to have a lot of friends, and you couldn't pick between them, then I think you think, well, if you're going to have them, this is going to cost you money. And not too much of a stretch to say it probably will cost you more than your wedding dress. Do you know what I mean? So like if you think that you can't, well, you can pick up some bridesmaids dresses for £100, but I would say that by the time that you've got, where do you draw the line and what you're funding? It's, you know, there's a bouquet, there's hair and makeup, there's a bridesmaid's dress, there is potentially alterations, yeah, there's shoes, you know, all of those kind of things, gifts for your bridesmaids. So I would say by any estimate, that looks like £500 a head.
Yeah.
Do you not think?
Yeah, that's hefty.
Yeah. So if you decide that you have 6 really good friends, you've just got to think, well, that's £3,000 by the time you paid for their hair and makeup and everything else.
And I do think if you do ask someone to be a bridesmaid, like, do you think that you should pay for them?
Well, I mean, I think this is part of the problem, really, is the American way is, you know, very much like that Bridesmaids film, help me, I'm poor. You know, it's like you've got one rich bridesmaid and one poor bridesmaid. But the tradition in America is that the bridesmaids are self-funding. So, you know, you can ask, you know, it's about 12 people and it's not going to cost you any money particularly. I suppose you've still got to buy the flowers maybe and the, you know, I don't know whether you've like foot the bill for the hair and makeup, but it's a self-funding operation. So, you know, and then of course that aesthetic of a huge girl squad, you know, now the marketing for bridal is so global. You've got this huge girl squad and then, you know, nobody, it's the deregulated advertising now of bridal, which is that doesn't come with a price tag. It doesn't tell you how much they've spent on that to have that look good. So I think, you know, like when I hear most brides, they would say like their price for their bridesmaids is like £100 to £200, which is not bad if you're like buying an off the peg dress. But generally, if you're doing made to order and bridesmaids, that doesn't buy you that fantastic level of quality at all. But I even think £200 is like, I don't know. I mean, when I do those, you know, our content days and I'm buying a dress to look cool on camera, they tend to be more like 250 to £600. That's the sort of price that I would spend on a dress to go to a wedding. So probably more money than a bride is prepared to pay for her bridesmaid. But yeah, so it is that kind of that aesthetic. It's also like when like there's like incredibly crazy weddings where people dance down the aisle. Do you know what I mean? And it's like dancing down the aisle. So it's so yeah, I kind of think the thing is like think first that you don't have to have any, then think it's going to cost you money because it's kind of like, you know, and are you ready to put that into your budget really meaningfully? And I actually don't know what the boys do. If they're like, do they rent suits for guys if they don't have a morning suit or something, or if they haven't got their own black tie? Do they?
When Joe was the best man, his they all went suit shopping. I think his friend bought him the suit when he was the best man. Yeah. Not that he's ever going to wear it again, but
no, it doesn't seem the suit type, really.
No.
Well, it's got your wedding next year. Maybe he'll wear that and then. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the thing that you need to think about. And then it's also another interesting thing. When I got married, and it was a very, obviously, low-key thing, and it was supposed to be just Georgia as my bridesmaid and sort of Lily. They didn't really have anything that looked like bridesmaids' dresses. I bought Georgia a Vivienne Westwood dress and gave her a bunch of flowers. And Lily was wearing something else, like a little white jacket and something, and she had some flowers. And then because I'm so fussy, my florist made me 2 bouquets. So I gave one to my sister to carry, and I was like, hey, you can be a bridesmaid. Everyone was carrying flowers. So basically, anyone that saw us would know that we were it was a bridal party because you're carrying a bouquet. So basically, the other thing is you could also have your bridesmaids and just don't buy them a dress, have them wear whatever the hell they like and just give them some flowers. Because when you get photographed all together, that our sort of like coding in our brain and what we used to sing, we'll say this is a bridesmaid's dress because they're holding a bunch of flowers next to a bride. So, you know, that's also like quite an interesting scope on this. Is like if you give anyone a bunch of flowers that kind of have a related kind of content or flower colour to your own bouquet, bridesmaid.
Yeah, I guess you can make everybody look complimentary by having a common accessory as well that they all have. It doesn't have to be they all have to wear completely matching dresses. It could be anything.
I kind of think that would make people feel quite comfortable, and particularly if you've got a really broad age range of like bridesmaids, or you've got a broad range of body types or a broad range of anything, which is what you would normally expect in a kind of like group of girls, different colorings, different skin tones. It's that, it becomes an absolute Herculean task to find one dress in one color that will go across all sorts of people at a reasonable price. Just, and I see people like literally angling, the search engines to try and find this. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't exist.
No.
I tell you why it doesn't exist, actually. Years ago, when I first started working for my mum, so 30 years ago, we sold bridesmaids dresses then, and they were silk, and they were British made, and they were £250 a piece 30 years ago. But our most expensive dresses were about £1,100. So if you think now that our most expensive dresses were around about £8,000,
how expensive would those bridesmaids dresses be?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you put a bridesmaid's budget in of, say, like £1,200, £1,500, you could probably get something really amazing. But that bridesmaid budget we've had a double pressure on that, which is firstly the American example of an absolute bride squad / team, and then so more of them, and then in real terms an absolute decline in the budget. That isn't even a viable, amount of money, and people were willing to spend that like 30 years ago, but not now.
Yeah, true. When I look back over we've got the archival photos from like the 80s and 90s. The bridesmaids they've all got really properly made dresses on, and they always look really good. Maybe we should share some of those along with this.
I mean, they were all sort of silk dupion. Do you know what I mean? You had choices of colours. I mean, some of them were a bit disco, but and also I think the skill set amongst people is really different. So like my bridesmaids, when I got married the first time, they were quite young, actually. My sister was quite young when I got married. She can't have been more than about 20. And then the other two bridesmaids were like maybe 16-ish, something like that. And my mum made them. So they were beautiful dresses, like gold silk, like with a sort of like black gold shot silk with a black lace overlay on the top of the dresses off the shoulder, really boned, really beautiful. But my mum had the skill to make them. And make them well. And we went for fittings. We drove to the Midlands to fit these two girls that were like, I suppose my nieces when you think about it, but they feel like nieces if you just marry into them, do they? Particularly if you meet them old. Maybe they feel more like it if you witness them.
You're an adult just introducing yourself. Yeah. I'm your aunt now.
I'm your aunt. Yeah. They'll be like, gee, I'm really pleased about that. So I think there's that skill level that's gone as well, and that exactingness. I mean, and when I think about how everyone, the brides quite rightly and their mothers at fittings are literally so kind of like on it as far as the fit, and if there's a wrinkle or can I see a nipple or a belly button, or is this or is that, is it going to crease? I mean, they're so all over it. Literally that standard level just goes right out the window when it comes to bridesmaids. I remember this thing, and I doubt that this bride's going to listen to this podcast, so I'm going to say it anyway. Do you remember that bride last year that complained that her off-the-shoulder top that was satin had rotated on her?
Yeah, because she didn't put it on properly. The one we had edited.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah, we can. Because basically she complained that her off-the-shoulder satin top rotated on her, and therefore I think either the buttons or something didn't line up with the buttons on the back of the dress. And I was like, oh God, I'm really sorry about that. I'll see what's happened there. And actually we've got strategies now in this new off-the-shoulder top. It's like poppers on the inside to the inside of the dress. However, it shouldn't have rotated as much as that. And then when we got the photos, it's like she's got 6 bridesmaids. I'm like, what were they doing? Why hadn't they spotted that and turned it? Do you know what I mean? It's like it would have been the easiest thing in the world. So we apologised anyway, and we paid to get her wedding photos retouched. And then when she sent, I said, okay, look, you send the pictures, and obviously I'll get these retouched so that you can, have a selection of photos where this looks as it ought. Then she sent the photos. It was like, your bridesmaids didn't iron their dresses. And I'm like, wow. And I was like, literally, do you want me to get your bridesmaids' dresses retouched at the same time? Like, no one there in that bridesmaid party had the presence of mind either to iron their own dresses or make a tiny tweak on a shoulder on a dress to make buttons line up down the back. And I'm just like, that is not like this is a duality of standards that exists across our industry, which is really quite hard to kind of like to comprehend. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why did she say, and by the way, can you just retouch my bridesmaids dresses to make it look like they actually made an effort? Just like, well, I hope she doesn't hear this. Well, but it's true. I'd say that to her face.
You did say you were going to be controversial, so
yeah, it's quite controversial. But so if you're also going to have
I think
bridesmaids,
what you can learn from that, though, is that's what your bridesmaids are there for. They are there to attend to you, aren't they, and make sure that your dress is how it's supposed to be. That's one of their jobs. So, and none of them were doing that.
I also really remember from ages and ages ago getting some photos back from some photos from a bride, and she was like, she had an off the shoulder top, and somewhere just before she went down the aisle, one of her bridesmaids pulled the shoulders up onto the top of her shoulders, completely fucked up the whole like neckline of the dress. And I was like, man, that is bad. It's bad. So yeah, it's literally like they do need to attend. They need to be well briefed, and they probably need to, I would appoint one whose job it is not to get hammered until the dress has done all the formal levels of stuff and it's ready to be bustled or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that after that point you can step down off duty and do your things.
Yeah.
But there's so many sort of stories of like, bridesmaids treading on veils coming off, that sort of stuff. It's like, do it. And also the other thing, while I'm being controversial about this as well, is don't send them down the aisle first. It's so American. And they're not attendees if they're going first. I don't know what that is. That's a pretendee. And I remember going to a wedding once as well and seeing and being in the congregation, and it wasn't my job to sort anything out as far as the dress went, but watching the whole dress, train, everything flip. Obviously it must have flipped in a breeze, and all the bridesmaids had already gone in, so there was no one there to actually sort out the train. And there I am, literally sitting on my hands in a pew thinking, I can't get up and move it now. That's like, it's not going to go. So if you don't have your bridesmaids following you down the aisle, all that train, all that kind of like ever thing that everyone's like looking at.
It's funny, you don't really see that anymore. I can't actually remember the last time I saw somebody holding the train, walking behind, but that's how it used to be, isn't it? But now it's just like part of the show of having them come out first.
It's like that dancing down the aisle thing. It's like, it's a show, and which is fair enough. But, like every mum also says to me when they're not saying meringue, or does it crease? They're like, well, it's the back, isn't it? That's what everyone looks at in church. It's like, so shouldn't it be flat and straight and organised and as it should be? Yeah. With it's not a rotating collar and not a train that's been flipped over in a breeze. The bridesmaids need to attend. They need to go after you down the aisle. Not like,
if you imagine children, little girls pretending to get married, you would have one of them with a sheet and one of them holding the sheet behind them. That's part of being a bridesmaid, isn't it?
Yeah, as I say, it's a kind of an Americanization of the kind of traditions, which is fair enough. I can see how you'd be like, it's quite camp. It's like, let me send everyone first, and then I'll come high kicking down the aisle afterwards, like the main act. But it has some practical problems, and I'm just saying that one of them is nobody's actually looking at what the hell's going on.
That's something to think about again when you're choosing your bridesmaids, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Are they practical? Crisis, because that is really important. Do you know what I mean? And if you've got one that isn't practical or calm in a crisis, give them something else to do. Give them the hen to do.
God, I've never been a bridesmaid, and I really want to be one. I think I'd be so great at it.
I have been a bridesmaid when I was a child.
Yeah, I was a flower girl. Yeah. I had a little Laura Ashley dress.
I'm surprised that nobody's asked me to be a bridesmaid, because imagine what that would come with. Let's think of the benefits.
Yeah.
Literally. I had a bride in on Friday who lives in Aberdeen and has tried on a Suzanne Neville dress in Aberdeen, but her family live near us, so she's also been to us. Kind of assume that she's probably going to buy it in Aberdeen, seems more sensible. But do you know what I mean? That's the kind of level of competition that you have. But it did remind me that the woman Alison, who owns this shop in Aberdeen, really lovely, is one of those people that I always love to bump into at like trade events. When her daughter got married, the bridesmaids all had pastel coloured Suzanne Neville dresses.
Oh wow.
They had the dress called Cherish, which was the most beautiful, like hand draped bodice with beaded shoulders and a really fluid, beautiful silk chiffon skirt. And she had bridesmaids in pastel cherishes.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
But that's what I'm saying. If you own a wedding dress shop, that is going to be something that you need to show that you can do weddings really well. Suzanne Neville does occasion wear. That would be really good. Somebody asked me to be a bridesmaid. I'd probably have like either, Nautier or Suzanne Neville run me something up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in a dress from Coast. That's faux show. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so I just, that personal level of like, for me, I'd be like, someone asked me to be a bridesmaid. I'm like, right, we're all having Neville. Imagine when my brides are, I'll be like, by the way, Emma, would you like to be a bridesmaid?
I know.
Because I feel that you could actually bankroll that quite nicely. So, yeah. Somebody would like come along and be like, Leah, Emma.
Yeah.
Stand up like Lady Gaga going to the Grammys, like full black corsets
I
swirling.
know. But I joked yesterday that I went to a baby shower yesterday, and I was like, I'm just going to turn up looking like Maleficent at the christening. That's what I'd be like as a bridesmaid.
Yeah, but isn't that how like the whole of Sleeping Beauty starts? Doesn't a bad fairy turn up to a christening or something?
Maleficent, yeah, she turns up just like looking terrifying. Yeah,
I don't think I've seen that. But yeah, that's what
that's what I'd be like.
Yeah, so there's a good shout for bridesmaids. How to make sure your bridesmaids look good? Invite me or Leah to be your bridesmaid.
Okay, right, episode done.
Episode done. Yeah, we're off anyway. We're available at like. You just can't get married on a Saturday because I'm always working on a Saturday.
I'll do the Saturdays. You can do the Sundays.
Sundays and weekdays. Okay, there we go. That's fine. We'll come with a really good wardrobe. So basically, so that's like, oh my God, that's such an overview of bridesmaids. That's so general. But let me go a bit more like into the kind of the picture that I put on Instagram of Billy and Chapel and Sabrina. Yeah, is basically, I think, if you're gonna, so all of that, aside, how it's come to this mess is, I would say there's really, really good ways you can honor the individuality of your friends. But I think the key thing, and this is what controversial, I'm going to apologise now in advance to anyone that makes bridesmaids dresses, sells bridesmaids dresses, or anyway earns their living from it, is get rid of the word dress. Like literally scrape it out of your vocabulary. Just scrape the word dress away, because the dress is the problem. Do you know what I mean? That's effectively the problem, is a dress. Because as we all know from our, wedding, my extensive 30-year wedding research, is that rarely do people turn up a size. Which is why I'm so insistent that all our designers offer full made to measure and full couture service, and that we can honour each individual's body without discussing size, and we can make sure that fit is beautiful. So, however, when we're looking at the budget that you're likely to give to a bridesmaid, the problem is it's a dress. So if you happen to be like me, size 20 something on the top and a size 16 on the bottom, there isn't a dress really that's going to look really good on me, except for the things that I pick for the content shoot. So like the Sister Jane type of dress or the Saloni or something. It's like, it's generally quite big. It's generally like quite dramatic. And I love those kind of dresses, but I do realise that they're quite niche. But I also, I've got things that have got a bit of fit in the waist, but generally I have to go for the boobs first. I think when I look at bridesmaids dresses that are on offer, there's almost not one I would wear. I don't think. And my figure's not that unusual. I see lots of people the same sort of shape as me. So I think the problem is dress first. So I would start by broadening the search and thinking about all sorts of different concepts. One of my favourite concepts for, like, say, a winter wedding is to think about coats and thinking about really treating your bridesmaids to like an incredible coat. I saw one actually in Florence and Fred. Is it Florence and Fred that's at Tesco's?
Yeah, FNF.
Yeah, there was a really beautiful pale blue coat in there, and it wasn't very expensive, probably made by children somewhere aside. And I would be like, oh, this is really nice. I quite like that. So, I would say, you could buy your friends the ultimate sort of camel coat, or this one was, I think, a pale blue grey colour. It's just buy them a coat. Do you know what I mean? Something that doesn't really need to fit that well, but you can do the whole Kate Middleton going to kind of church look. It's always a good look. I mentioned it for mothers as a bride and all sorts of stuff with a coat. So, or think about having, talking of Sister Jane, they're not paying me. This is not sponsored content, but I'm very much into their stuff at the moment. But really beautiful skirt on their current collection, which is a print It's kind of straightish with a frill at the bottom. I mean, that would look amazing on some girls, teamed with matching sort of knitwear. And then they've also got a dress and a blouse in the same print. And I'd be like, well, put some in the top with a plain skirt, some in the top with a trouser, or, something like that, where you don't have to have so you've got a really interesting thread, but you're working with a company that has, a group of items made in the same fabric, but not a dress, because the dress thing is complex. Again, I would also say, I would think it would be very smart to put your girls, if you were doing a black tie wedding, into a kind of a variant of the Saint Laurent Le Smoking. So actually getting a very feminine tux and putting that with something. So jackets, separates, those kind of things. I just think like it move away from the phrase, the word dress, because it's so rigid.
What do you think about, if you found a fabric that you really liked and maybe took it to a boutique or somewhere and had a designer and had, everyone have an item made up, so
they wouldn't be able to afford it.
No, it'd be too
honestly,
much.
I swear to God, even if you found a freelancer that was working at £25 an hour, for example, which is a kind of like, sort of a reasonable like going rate direct, but even so, you've still got a hump for someone that isn't already booked. It's going to take a good, 6 to 8 hours to make a dress. So you've still got £200 of make plus the fabric. And also dressmakers, you'd have to buy the pattern. And also dressmakers can sometimes be incredible dressmakers, but they don't do incredible pattern cutting. And we've got incredible pattern cutters that can't sew. So you've got a real mixed bag there. So if there isn't really that sort of skill set in something, unless all of the bridesmaids wanted to go to a sewing bee kind of class.
I was thinking about your mum making yours, and I just thought, if everyone could have a jacket made or a skirt made, or even like you could get bow ties or any, just a matching item in the fabric.
I love your concept. I mean, buying some fabric and maybe getting like an accessory made to go together. So basically, there is a company that we've used several times. I'm just looking at their website is harlequin-uk.com. And they are a company where you can they do all sorts of bespoke products in things. So handbags, ties, hair bows, all that kind of stuff. So they would be a really good place. So if you wanted to go and get, say, some Liberty print fabric or something, and you wanted ties, and they've got loads of things that you can make products. And actually quite easy to do. You just need to kind of send the right amount of fabric, and they're very quick as well and not very expensive. But they've got very, very cool bits and pieces that they can do. So I would really recommend that as an option. It's quite a sound recommendation for a lot of brides, actually. There's all sorts of things on there you can get done. Headbands, they cover headbands and do that sort of stuff as well.
So I guess if everyone had like a matching kind of headband or a bag or just one small thing to kind of bring everything together, that's a nice idea.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, I mean, I quite often, the other thing to bear in mind is colour schemes. So quite often, I think that you shouldn't have your bridesmaids as your colour scheme. I've always said to people it's better to go for a neutral and bring that colour in with accessories. So that again would be a good place to put that in. So I find that if somebody goes, I just love yellow, it's like, please don't put anybody in, like at your bridal party all in yellow. Or the other one that is quite popular is like very pale pink, and I'm like, I would look naked. A lot of people do look naked in that. I would feel like Bianca Censori at the Grammys. So I kind of think again, but you could just give people like just the most beautiful kind of pale pink bouquet or something, and like maybe a pale pink hair bow like we featured on our content day or something, or a pink headband or pink earrings or something. I would wear pink lace socks and shoes, as I did on our content day. But you can create pink and it can be a really meaningful look, but you just don't have to put the person in it. So I think that's really worth doing as well. And the same for your, tables. You can, I don't think the bridesmaids should match the tables, but I would love to see a pink tablecloth, pink candles, pink everywhere. I would feel like so cute. But it's very hard for adult women to wear that and feel cute.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
So don't be having bridesmaids built colour scheme. So I would always go for like quite a neutral. I mean, I know it doesn't sound exciting, but if you did a taupe or a grey or a navy or something, it's like, I know it feels like quite school uniform colours, maybe a bottle green if pushed, but still that's a colour. But like there's all sorts of, then it would look very expensive if you had them in, it's quite Kate Middleton-y again, do you know what I mean? It's quite like wear a neutral. But I if you want to look expensive, I think it's a lot more doable in a much more kind of neutral colour. And I'm saying, do you want to look expensive? Because, like, what is the horror of all horrors is Cadbury's purple, isn't it, in satin? That's literally it, isn't it? That's like, if everyone goes, oh, that colour's good, Cadbury's purple, you're like, please, God, no, just no. Or the other thing in my horrors of things is like bridesmaids in red, so the bride carries red flowers and then the bridesmaids carry white flowers, so they all look like one just giant moving toadstool with multiple legs. No, just no. It's horrible. Just can't do that.
Oh.
So it's like I think really cool color paletting is really important for the wedding. If you want it, I mean, you don't have to do any of this, of course. If you just want to have like Cadbury's purple bridesmaids in satin, go right ahead. I'm not going likely to be at your wedding. Do you know what I mean? So if that sparks joy in you, do it. So the other thing also as well is doing ivory or white bridesmaids and not getting that color match exactly right with your wedding dress and it being off. That is up there with the off-white flowers that don't match the wedding dress either. That whole like septic cauliflower bouquet doesn't match
There was a bride on Vogue Weddings recently, and her bouquet just was completely the wrong white. I was like, Emma's going to hate this. It made the dress look off. Yeah, it looked really odd.
Really, we need to do a whole content day about white and weddings, just like because that's a lot to talk about, different shades of white. Everybody always asks me, what colours do you call all these dresses? It's like, broadly speaking, they're all ivory, but they kind of work differently. So, and again, so like talking about sort of obviously like what matches what dress. So like, at the moment we're doing quite a lot of crisp Micados, taffetery type fabrics. It doesn't feel quite right to me then to put a chiffon bridesmaid's dress next to that. That feels like a fabric misstep. And like satin in bridesmaids colours can sometimes be too glossy, which when we put a satin in a wedding dress, it's it's either pure silk like the Divine Atelier, or it's a sort of velvety satin, so it doesn't feel like too shiny. Whereas I think some colours, strong bold colours, when you add shine, it gets very panto. So I think that's also like the colours and textures of dresses are very, very important to have as well. So yeah, kind of I think the color scheme and the fabrics is really important. But I personally feel that the color scheming is everything. I almost think it's never a good idea to have people in the same dresses. I mean, obviously, like there's the big bridesmaids companies like Maids to Measure, Rewritten, TH and TH. Those people have got like different shaped dresses in the same fabrics. I think like one of the big American ones is like Waters Bridesmaids, isn't it? I think
it is, yeah.
They have got the same kind of concept as well, being able to like do different things in different styles and different fabrics. So I think there's good choices. But again, when I'm just actually looking now while I'm actually talking to you, which is kind of rude, it's, when I'm looking at the Waters Bridesmaids, I find, like almost like if you put a gun to my head, which one would I wear? Nah, most of them don't look like you can wear a bra with them. Quite a lot of them are satin and shiny. I mean, it's quite hard to say if you had to, what would you wear? Potentially one called Bryn.
Oh yeah, I like that one. It's got sleeves.
Yeah, it's got sleeves and you can wear a bra with it, I think. It comes in 17 colours. Does it have a filled-in back?
Open back.
You can't wear a bra with it. So no, that one's out then. So it's got a completely open back with long sleeves. So okay, there goes the only thing that I would have possibly chosen in there, and I can't wear a bra with it.
I know ghost bridesmaid dresses are quite popular as well, and some of those look like you could wear a bra with them. But they're all satin.
You've also got to like really suit like bias cut.
Mm.
So I don't. So it's kind of like, that's what I'm saying, is it's like there's actually looking at Waters here. Also, all of their imagery looks like it's been put on one size body. Well, and I think the colour choice here has been prioritised over the design. So it's not so good. So basically, I think I personally would never put everyone in the same thing. I also don't like all the same colour. Love a mixed up colour palette where people are just told a vague steer on colours and they are going off and buying themselves. One of the girls that we had, which I'm thinking of, who had a guy in her group of bridesmaids, got married in Chelsea.
Oh yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah, and I think she had pink. It's just the thing, and the guy was wearing but it was just like mad choices of like different pinks and things like that, and it looked really eclectic and really beautiful. But as I say, if people, I just kind of think it really comes down to what that bride wants. If you want really the most beautiful matching set of girls behind you in the same colour, you've got to spend money and you've got to have them fitted and you've got to see if they can wear a bra and you've got to see if it is flattering. And I hate that. I really, really hate that. But if you see someone in your wedding photos looking awful in a dress and feeling awful in it, is that a good thing? I mean, I think you've got to honour your friends, and I would always say that the other thing I always say quite often in chapel is like, think about a girl group. Think about how, I mean, like the most famous one, like Spice Girls. I mean, that's so basic, but do you know what I mean? They're sporty, whatever, like, sort of sporty Spice and baby Spice and posh Spice. If you think about how they lent into that and kind of styled themselves in a way that was kind of reflective of either their personality or a fake personality or whatever it was. Think about your bridesmaids like that. Think about them a bit like a girl group. And so if you've got one who's a bit Billie Eilish, then let her be Billie Eilish. I think like Georgia is going to be a bridesmaid to her friend Fran, my daughter, and they wanted a mismatched pastels, much like my nails. So basically, they bought a bunch of stuff online. The budget is not huge for that for them, and I think Fran was giving some money each. But one of the girls, Pippi, is gay, and so I think she wanted something that was more of a trouser-based item. So she had a jumpsuit. So they were all in different colours and different styles and things like that, and a mixture of pastels, and that was quite a cool shout. But just honouring that person and what they would wear. So, if you've got someone who is, non-binary, don't put them in a dress. Do you know what I mean? It's like, or give people the option to go separate dresses, things like that. Really broaden it out. Because I do think that you would get also more for your money if you don't try and buy a made-to-order bridesmaid's dress. The other thing I did the other day was because I was thinking about this, went into a Sue Ryder shop in Southsea. And at the back of the shop, they've got a sort of vintage and almost like occasion wear section, and I bought 3 bridesmaids dresses for like 60 quid. They're so cool. They're so 70s.
Amazing.
They're like the colour of a fruit salad chew. So there's one bright orange one, one peach one, and one pink one. And the only problem is with all vintage stuff is it's always quite small. But then that's what I'm saying. It came from when bridesmaids were small because they were young and maids. So, but I think the other thing I would do is like, I would really, really trawl around like vintage shops. Like I would trawl around just like charity shops to see what's there. And I would also get on things like Vinted and see if you can pick up better quality clothes for less money. Because and then if you can, put them back on Vinted afterwards and kind of keep that circle of life going, basically.
I've got a collection of vintage dresses that you know about, but I got a lot of those from kilo sales. So you go to these vintage kilo sales and you buy by the kilo, and they have just like, it was a big church, the one I went to last, a massive hall full of rails. You just can find so much treasure there. So if you can find one of those near you, they're amazing.
I mean, like when we went out for like the Miss Bush Christmas do and I had those sequin shorts on, I wanted a really oversized blazer to go with it. So I've got this oversized Austin Reed blazer, which I got for 30 quid from like a charity shop. And now I'm just going to charity shops every time I see a nice spangly brooch, just putting it on a brooch on the lapel. It looks quite cool. It's very kind of 80s reboot with the oversized jacket. It almost feels a bit Miami Vice. Like quite soon I might actually start rolling up the sleeves as well. But, what you can find there in a charity shop, or and there's a really good vintage shop in down here called the One-Legged Jockey as well, and they had like black dinner jackets, tuxes, that kind of thing. So if you wanted to kind of do a black tie wedding and just say to your girls, like, I'm going to give you a tux, you get a sequin dress of your choice to go underneath it. Doesn't need to match, you know, because there's a united kind of element and a thread going through it.
We're at an hour. I know. This is our longest episode yet, I think.
I don't even feel I've literally even...
We've barely touched the surface, have we?
These are really basically like, this doesn't even start with me like, what would you put with this dress or that dress?
No, so we need to have part 2.
I think we could have a part 2 though, because basically what we could do is like, people will be like, you know, anonymously could be like, I'm wearing this dress, what would you put with it? And then we could put together like quite a simple blog post or a mood board together and be like, right, do this then. This is what I would suggest you do, how you put this together. Be really cool. And if people gave us the real practical things, like I've got a pregnant bridesmaid, someone that's having IVF, I've got someone who's this, I've got someone who lives in Australia, my sister, and a boy. Do you know what I mean? That's the reality of what people are trying to dress. It isn't, I have got 6 equi-sized best friends that I want, that are all perfectly, you know, tanned and they've got the same skin and look great in pale pink. I'm like, crack on then, get them all pale pink dressed.
Colour and everything.
Absolutely. So I mean, it would be really a good exercise if people wanted to give us a much more specific sort of like brief, and you know, actually kind of almost, I think that's would be like I was even going to talk about bridesmaid shops and things as well.
I know.
Like, I literally can't believe I've talked for an hour and I haven't even got to the shout outs and the names I was going to suggest yet.
Next time. To summarise this episode, it's think about who you're choosing, if you have to choose anyone, and like have fun with it, isn't it? Like just
drop the word dress out of your vocabulary.
Yes,
and
bridesmaid outfits.
Just bridesmaid's outfit and also girl group.
Right, we better sign off. I've got some editing to do.
Okay. I've got some editing, like I had to. Sorry about that. I do like to keep you on your toes. Anyway, it's great to talk about it. I could go on. I could do another 2, maybe 3, without even anybody asking a specific question. But I would really welcome a specific. I'm wearing this dress, and this is my bridesmaids team. What would you put them in? And I could pretty much do a kind of here. And you could like it or not like it, but at least you'd have an absolutely strong opinion about whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, lovely. I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next Monday.
We will. See you then.
Bye-bye.
You'd like to know, wouldn't you? You'd like to know, wouldn't you? You'd like